Welengati kame mafrapo, and welcome again to the Eana Mokri podcast. We got a bit of a light episode today, but we've got some exciting things going on too.
Sorry.
All right.
That unintentional.
Well, I appreciate that we have a cold opening, which is an opening that won't be confusing in the final product. Welengati kame mafrapo, and welcome to the Eana Mokri podcast. This day is going to be a little bit unusual because we don't really have a whole lot of Avatar news to cover. However, we will have a bunch of our usual segments. I'm not going to be able to do that alone, so I'm Dominic, and here with me we have a guest, Toni.
Hi.
We also have Awe
Galte.
and Willem.
Tsu'tey.
So, first up, we have our featured member interview. As we mentioned in previous episodes, we are opening this up to the community to join us on the podcast for featured member interviews. And for our first interviewee from the community, we have Toni.
Yeah, hi, me.
Yeah, that's you.
Yep.
All right. So, to get things started, who are you? Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, you already know that I'm Toni. I go by Toni.
Well, I know that. The audience doesn't know that.
Well, you already said my name. But
Right.
I go by Toni to Ayrawng Terisa'ite on the Discord. I'm from Canada. Mm-hmm. I'm native speaker of English. I like to draw and write in my spare time. Fairly standard.
Yes, there's definitely a lot of overlap of that subset of hobbies and our community. Yep. Yeah. So, tell us about joining Ellen? Why did you become a member of the community? How'd that whole process go? Tell us about what inspired you to join.
I was basically just looking for a place to learn learnna'vi, as the name of the community suggests, and it happened to be the most popular one in the Google results. And I was
we kind of have the market cornered on that by being named learnna'vi.
Aren't monopolies bad?
No. It's not a monopoly. We have location.
Yes, you do.
Monopolies are not bad if you're the monopolist.
Yes, we are the hot dog stand in the stadium.
Yeah, so to speak.
So anyway, when was that? How long have you been in the community?
I've been on and off, but I think I've been around for a couple years now. Like, what was it? 2016, 17 that I joined?
2017. You joined later in the year that I joined.
Yeah, 2017. I just couldn't remember, like, which one was it?
Yeah.
Had you already seen Avatar a long time before that, or just then?
I saw Avatar for the first time probably a couple months after it came out, and I've been rewatching it ever since. Which is
very familiar story.
Yep.
That's actually why I wanted to learn Na'vi, was because I was rewatching it so many times, and I was like, you know what? I want to be able to tell what they're saying in Na'vi on my own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you were to poll people in our community who joined after the theatrical run of the film, I'd say a reviewing of Avatar within a week's time of joining probably accounts for about 95% of joins. Like, a lot of people will watch the film and be like, "Dang, I want to learn that."
Yeah,
the other 5% were people who visited the Valley of Mo'ara.
Yes.
It's like rewatching it after a certain amount of times just kind of lights an impulsive spark. You're just like, you know what? I want to learn. Mm-hmm. And if I try to learn, I'm going to find people.
Yeah.
People like me.
So is that ultimately what inspired you to sort of like really look to learn the language? Was this idea that you want to, meet some new people, or is it just like, I'm curious about this language and I want to just know it? Did you have any goals, I guess, when you joined?
I think the main reason I wanted to learn Na'vi was because I have, I'm a huge fan of constructed languages. Conlangs are the coolest thing. Like, anyone who can make a good one deserves a lot of recognition because they're actually really hard to do. And when I saw Na'vi, it just seemed so natural to speak it. Like, it sounded, even though obviously it was not easy for the actors to learn it in the short amount of time they had, the ones that did well did really well, and it just seemed really natural and very cool sounding.
Do you know any other conlangs?
I
Constructed
don't.
languages?
I don't know any that I can speak anymore, but I used to go around learning bits and pieces of different people's conlangs just for the hell of it. At one point, I tried to make my own, which those days are long behind me. Although I might make one someday if I ever get the time.
All right. Do you have a favorite Na'vi word by chance?
Yes. It actually is the one that I submitted because it makes me feel warm inside knowing that something I came up with was cool enough for Paul's notice. But I'm not going to brag about which one it was.
Understandable. So, I guess in what ways do you think Avatar has changed your life? Or in what ways has it impacted your life?
It's probably made the most impact in the sense of helping me find a social learning community when I was at a lonely point in my life. Like, even though I haven't really been active all the time, it's nice having that community to fall back on where if I want to, I can just pop in and say, hey guys, how are you doing? And the fact that everybody is so interested in learning, even if it's Na'vi or even if it's not, just everybody kind of sees learning in a positive light. And it's just really nice to have that kind of community that, helps propel you into learning.
Yeah. Absolutely. I get what you're talking about. Yeah, I think a very common thread among anybody who ventures to learn a conlang or an artlang that was made for some media property. I think you sort of have to be kind of innately curious to want to pursue that kind of to figure that stuff out and want to learn more.
And if you're not at the beginning, hanging out with people like that can easily help you find that side of you.
Yeah. So, if you could ask Fromer or Cameron, or really anyone associated with the Avatar films, I guess, we should sort of just broaden that question, really. But if you could ask them any movie or language-related question, what would it be?
I think I would ask Cameron if he was planning on including some of the more nitty-gritty cultural details of day-to-day life for the Na'vi, like personal hygiene and some of those other things that you don't really tend to see in movies. Because
they don't exactly make for the best cinema.
I mean, they don't, but it would just be really cool if there was like a couple of offhanded, comments or just this quick little look-see at some part of it, because it would just, I don't know, make it feel more realistic to me.
Well, yeah, we already know that Cameron is very obsessive on details and has the world of Pandora is fleshed out in a great amount of detail, and just expanding on the canon. I'm absolutely sure between the next 4 films that we're gonna get that we're going to learn more about that. But yeah, absolutely, there's surprisingly little available now for how much of it is certainly developed.
If I remember correctly, Toni, weren't you in the first NCI class?
I believe I was. I definitely signed up for it. I think I was there for a couple sessions. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that was definitely the rougher of the 2 sessions.
Yeah. It was nice though. I liked it. I still feel bad about not being able to attend more of them.
No worries. I'm glad you liked it though. I'm hoping to make it a little bit better in the future.
Yeah.
I'm working on a rework right now.
Hit me up whenever you start doing it again. I'd like to see if I can fit it into my schedule.
For sure.
All right, with that, we're going to wrap up the interview and move on to our next segment. So, we do have a little bit of Avatar news, though, if you ask me, it's not really Avatar news. So, something we basically sort of have to address this in some capacity. So, Avengers Endgame recently beat out Avatar's box office record. As is customary, James Cameron sent an appreciative letter, public letter to the team, congratulating them on being the new box office kings. You may have seen this image before. Eana, please put it on the video of Iron Man surrounded by Atokirina, which cool.
I like the picture.
Yeah, it's a nice picture, even though all I could see when I looked at it was like spot the 3 different poses of Atokirina that were like copy pasted and slightly skewed to make this image. I mean, if you look for it, you can kind of see that they did like 3 renders and then copy pasted, but
I can
whatever.
See some of that.
Anyway, that's not the point. The point is that, so Avatar, we can no longer say is the highest grossing film of all time. And to me, that's where this ends. Like, that's it. That's the only thing that really matters about this. However, we have an audience that is probably going to be expecting us to say more about that, so does anyone have any thoughts on this?
The next films in the series will beat out Avengers, so that's fine. We'll take back the crown, okay? It's all good.
It's a bold claim.
Yeah, but
so,
I'm pretty sure people, like the same people that watched the first ones, will watch the rest.
And I agree. I agree with that for the most part. So I'm not totally sold, and I'm not gonna drink all of James Cameron's Kool-Aid and believe that the sequels will necessarily beat out the first one. For as far as box office record goes, I don't think that's necessarily as guaranteed. I think Avatar did definitely strike at a moment. It was a good film. I'm not dismissing it. I host an Avatar podcast and I speak the language, so like obviously I like the film, but I'm not so far gone as to not recognize that it did come at a very specific moment in the media ecosystem. Like, Avatar basically heralded the rebirth of 3D films. Like, it gave us a reason to care about 3D films again. It was so ahead of its time that it still visually stands up today, and you are deluding yourself if you believe otherwise. And it was truly phenomenal, but it was like a cultural moment. It was marketed as a cinematic experience, which I'm not even going to disagree with that. It is an experience. Honestly, seeing Avatar in any form other than in a theater is sort of a disservice to the film itself. And I'm not saying that to be pretentious. I am actually saying that like this film was designed to, you start watching the film, you are pulled into this world for 3 hours and some change, and then then you're done. Like, if you see Avatar on TV, you are constantly assaulted with commercial interruptions, and that takes you out of the suspension of disbelief. So, or if you're watching like a stripped down cut of it on like a tiny airplane seat video monitor or whatever, that's not Avatar. Like, you are not watching Avatar. You are watching Avatar in the form of a tiny screen or with constant commercial interruption. But that's not really the experience. Avatar, then. Yeah, it's not the experience that was massively successful.
For that same reason, that's why I always kind of champion the idea of watching the 3D cut of the film in a VR headset, because it gives you that exact same experience. It gives you that immersion, that complete immersion without any interruptions.
But yeah, that's my point. Is I don't know if that kind of lightning can strike twice necessarily. I think Cameron's going to absolutely make an amazing film, at least as good as the first. Like, if you enjoyed how the first film appeared, the experience of seeing it in the theaters, how the 3D was done, the cinematography, if you enjoyed that, you're going to enjoy the sequels. Yeah. But that kind of experience in a cinema was new. It was shiny, it was new, and it was groundbreaking at the time. But I think because Pandora's box has been opened, because Pandora's box has been opened, we can't necessarily count on the idea that the sequels will capture the same sort of cultural touchstone moment. I think they're going to be successful, but I think expecting them to break the box office record, that's sort of up to the individual films itself, and we really don't know too much about them to definitively say that they're going to have draw.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you on that.
But I will say, I definitely think there's something to be said for the build-up that they've had, where we've had to wait for them so long. Like, and I mean, it's totally reasonable how long they've taken to produce. And, I mean, they're even taking less time than anyone would expect them to, because they've all been worked on side by side. But, like, the wait time, the anticipation, the build-up from the fans, and the fact that the community for it is still so, strong and lively, I really think there's something to be said for that in terms of how successful the sequels may be.
So
that's true.
I have mixed words about the statements that you just said. On one hand, yes, I agree that the anticipation factor is actually huge. And while you were saying that, I was thinking about something. It might actually hurt the release of Avatar 2 for James Cameron to re-release the first in theaters before leading up to this first sequel. A lot of people have been calling for a theatrical re-release to draw people back in, but if there are enough sleeping fans out there, which I believe that there are, I honestly believe that there is a massive Avatar fan base that just hasn't had a way to interact with Avatar, hasn't had a way or reason really to interact with Avatar in the last couple of years, that will absolutely be excited to see these sequels. I mean, you need look no further than any Twitter or Facebook comments from any official Avatar post to see like 50 comments that are like, when are they coming? Or when just release the film already. Because, people on the internet lack patience. But there's clearly a demand for people when they think about Avatar, they're like, yeah, I want more Avatar. The fan base definitely exists, but like if there's going to be such a driving force to return to Pandora, like if people just want to see like more Avatar again, I feel like a second theatrical re-release might cut into that, and people are like, okay, I got my fix of seeing more Pandora, and they might be rushing to the box office less for the return trip, even though it is something new.
Oh, yeah, what I was thinking is that they might do a back-to-back re-release where when Avatar 2 gets released, they make screenings of the two movies back-to-back.
Now, that they absolutely should do. I would love for them to do a double feature.
Oh, man, yeah.
That would be very long.
Yes.
Very long, but
you just
so
do
worth
what
it.
you just do what Sound of Music did. And you just cut it halfway and then have your break.
Yeah, just have like a little intermission for people to go use the washroom and get more food and come back. But like,
hell, if you go to AMC, they have dine-in theaters. You just go to one of those.
Yeah, and
I brief word on those. I used to knock that idea, but then that was actually how I first saw the movie Arrival. Was like
Arrival's
while
so good.
dining. Arrival's my favorite movie.
Oh yeah,
honestly. But anyway, But yeah, I saw the first time I saw it was actually like a dine-in theater. I was enjoying a burger and fries while watching a movie, and it was amazing. So yes, like don't knock this is my little soapbox. Don't knock dine-in theaters, and I actually think that's a great way to do a double feature.
I love them. When I first saw those, I was like, "That's a genius idea," and I wish I'd thought of it.
Yeah, but like, if people are willing to sit for 3 hours for Endgame, you're gonna have people that are gonna be just as diehard for longer movies too. Just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard that like some years ago they actually did a lot of Wings marathon but the full extended editions in cinema. I mean, how many hours is that? 16 or something? I mean, that also was apparently a giant success. So.
No, I know a theater that did that with the Harry Potter movies. When the last Harry Potter movie came out, they marathoned all of them for like 2 days straight.
Interesting. I actually have done research recently because people don't shut up about Endgame versus Avatar thing. But on the subject of Harry Potter, actually the final Harry Potter film was the most successful in the box office. So I don't know exactly what factors contributed to that. Probably some parts inflation, but also maybe, I don't know, is the capstone event. So I think if I had to predict, I'd say that there's a high possibility that Avatar the Fifth will be the most successful of them, if any of them are going to be.
I would agree. It tends to happen that way because, especially for fans, they tend to go see it multiple times, especially if it's the ending one.
Well, also because the fifth Avatar film is going to have been riding on the coattails of the marketing and public hype from 2, 3, and 4. Avatar the First came out of nowhere, and for all intents and purposes, Avatar 2 will be 2.
Yeah, because it's been so long.
But Disney basically has their hand in this now. They're not going to not advertise it aggressively. They're not going to not market it. It's Disney. It's what they do.
Yeah.
It's very true. I mean, I will always champion that. I am extremely happy that Disney has it now because it means that they can blow the hell out of the world of Avatar and just make it this massive thing.
Mm-hmm.
Since it's been one of the most successful parks they've ever released.
Yeah. And that's without any relevant recent media release.
Yeah, the park came out a decade after the movie did, and it still had 4 to 5 hour lines.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was amazing. And the amount of people that still go there.
Yeah.
It's
the queue for Flight of Passage is still regularly exceeding 2 hours.
Oh yeah. I think it was like up to 4 when I went last time. And that was 2 months ago.
Which is kind of why I don't think that if they do a re-release of the first one in anticipation of 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't think that it would actually hurt sales all that much, because even if they're just like, oh, I want to fix, every fan out there that's been waiting for these movies, you can bet your butt that they've been sitting there rewatching the first movie on their computer day in, day out for the last however long, regardless of anything else.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a dedicated fan base. I mean, if I told you that there was an E.T. sequel coming in 3 years, but they're just now beginning filming, there's going to be a fan base for E.T., and they are probably excited and will definitely be checking it out. But E.T. also hasn't been really culturally relevant for over a decade. No one's really been thinking about E.T. the extraterrestrial. I believe in making this segment, we have now birthed the word E.T. into the universe, like, up 500%. Like, if you like, there was like a universe Google Trends for E.T. There's a sudden spike on this recording day. But that's the thing, though, is like that's a beloved film that people would absolutely go see if there was a sequel, but they don't really have a reason to think about it right now.
Man, just having you mention E.T. like that, and all I could think of was like immediately like, oh no, what if somebody gets their hopes up because they think that that's actually going to happen? And then all I could think of was that April Fool's or something a joke that happened like a couple of years ago about I forget the name of the show, but it was about like number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, like the kids in the cartoon.
Kids Next Door?
Yeah, that. There was this blow up over it because somebody made this prank where they were like, "Oh yeah, they're coming out with a sequel series where they're older." It was extremely elaborate, really well done, and it just all I could think of was that for some reason. Wow,
if they did it in the style of Kingsman, I'd watch the hell out of that. But kind of tangentially, it's interesting you mentioned E.T. because E.T. is very similar to Avatar in that it was kind of a one-off thing that ended up dominating the box office.
Yeah.
And it was because, again, it was a cinematic revolution type of thing.
Yeah. It was that. Well, that's the thing is, okay, if I am allowed my Endgame snark here, first of all, I want to make something abundantly clear. I don't give a shit about this record. Like, I honestly do not. And I don't believe that there's a legitimate reason to care about it. If you enjoyed Avatar, the fact that it made a lot of money wasn't the reason you liked it. And it's not going to change. That financial record also hasn't changed the version of Avatar that exists in the world. It is completely unaffected. It is some meta existential horse race. And
what?
It's not even a race because Avatar was standing still. And Endgame was trying to catch up to a record set 10 years ago. But if I am allowed some snark on this, I find it infinitely hilarious that it took a Marvel, which is an international juggernaut of a media franchise, like, what, a dozen films? I don't follow Marvel. I'm not a Marvel guy, so pardon my ignorance.
A lot more than a dozen.
Okay, thank you.
It took 20 to 30. It
took a long series.
A dozen films. And here's the thing, Avengers, as a high concept, is what if we took a bunch of superheroes that individually people don't care about as much, but put them together so there's something for everybody? This is, Avengers Endgame was like basically the Smash Brothers of Marvel. Where it's just like, oh, if you care about any of these things, you'll love Avengers.
So maybe
it's like it's almost like it was specifically. And this is I assume the climax of some story arc or something.
Yes,
I think
it's the complete climax of literally everything that's been building up since the first Iron Man ever released.
Exactly. So this is basically the Smash Brothers Ultimate of comic book superhero movie films.
To be fair,
no shit, it's successful.
This also happened in comics, so it's not like they only did the movies because they wanted to Smash Brothers it up.
Right.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's stuff of it, but yeah, that you've got a point there.
So it basically took Smash Brothers Ultimate of comic book films, basically something that's universally known and accessible, to top an original IP that came out of nowhere from a decade ago.
So basically what you are saying now is, okay, we should make a movie with the Terminator, Titanic and Avatar combined, and it will be a complete hit.
Don't even get me started. We wrote the beginning of that movie already.
What?
Yup. There's a couple of people in this community that can back me up on this. We wrote the beginning slate for that movie. We wrote the cold open for that movie already.
What?
And it even brought aliens into it. It was great.
But my point, my ultimate point being, though, that if you look at the films that have been, Endgame is almost an anomaly in its success, because if you look at the other most successful films of all time, they are these original IPs that just tried to do something great, came out of nowhere, and were enjoyed and loved.
Yeah. And
it's so weird that Endgame is now the capstone or on top of the heap financially, because it's like you could not get more like safe and derivative than this.
Yeah, and there is something to be said for what they did manage to pull off, because when the first Iron Man came out and they first hinted at this idea of a massive cinematic universe that they were going to tie together, that had never been done before. Yeah. Like we had like Harry Potter was coming out, But Harry Potter had a book series, and it was in a series. This is not a series. It was a series of movies built to be like a comic book, where they all kind of happen in similar times, but not all at the same time. It's not a particular sequence. Nobody had ever tried this before, so there is something to be said about for how well they did that, because it's a huge risk to make this massive plan, and if it crashes and burns, you're hosed.
That's the thing. That's the thing, though, is the first couple of entries, though, of this film, while they did hint at it, I think they hinted at it in the same way that basically every one-off movie will leave room for a sequel, much like Avatar did. Like, you can't look at the end of Avatar and be like, yeah, they clearly were like, this is the only one that's ever going to exist. And they definitely were like, okay, we're going to at least resolve it in a satisfying way, but it wasn't resolved in a, like, there's this sense of finality where nothing could happen after this kind of way.
That's the thing, though, is like with the first Iron Man, they directly say the Avengers Initiative. Like, it's hinted that is what they're aiming for. It's not even really hinted. It's pretty much overtly stated that that's what they're going towards. And so
interesting.
People were freaking out when it first came out, and there was this piece at the end, past the credits, which is what Marvel's famous for now, where it was just Nick Fury, and he's like, to Iron Man, I want to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative. Everybody was like, holy shit. We're about to get a lot of movies.
I feel like that's a fairly light commitment, and you also have to remember that these are characters that already existed. It's very similar to the Harry Potter films. They could have actually stopped at the first Harry Potter film. I mean, obviously they weren't going to with how successful that franchise was. But, like, these are established characters. People know who these characters are. They didn't have to figure out who Iron Man was when they went to see before seeing the film.
Yeah, no. Though I will mention, when it first came out, this was in a superhero movie environment where it was pretty much dominated by Spider-Man and Batman.
Yep.
And doing anything different was taking a huge risk. You got the X-Men in there too, but, like, anything different was kind of seen as a bigger risk because they weren't typically as well known by the general public. And that was. And before I
get a ton of hate mail, my goal here isn't to shit on Avengers. Like, honest and legitimate, snark-free congratulations to them.
No, yeah.
Oh, yeah. They made
Everybody who's listening to this podcast, go to the Marvel subreddit and be like, from the Avatar subreddit, we thank you, we congratulate you, and all of that. Because I've seen some pretty poor behavior, to be honest, from both sides on this.
Absolutely. But, like, honest to goodness, congratulations for them. Good on you. And I have friends who have been absolutely losing their shit in the lead up to these films because they love the Avengers universe as much as I love Avatar. For me personally, I enjoy the Avatar films. They are more specifically tailored towards my interests and what I like. Avengers does nothing for me. I've never really seen a superhero movie and it's been like, damn, this is my jam. It's been like, oh, that was pretty good. But
that's the first time you said
my perspective is, like, I think if you sort of look at these things objectively, Avatar was phenomenal. Avengers is pretty phenomenal too, but you could look at one of these two things as a studio exec and say, which of these is safer?
Yeah, and especially now, you would definitely get a Avengers type thing as the more likely candidate.
I mean, I mentioned this in a previous episode, and I just love this piece of trivia. 20th Century Fox kept Alvin and the Chipmunks: The Squeakquel as the backup film in case Avatar bombed for the holidays.
Yeah,
I'm glad that's not what we got.
Well, no, we got both, but one of them was more successful than the other.
Significantly.
No. it ain't so.
But the point is, Avatar was a massive risk and should be celebrated regardless of whether or not it holds the top position. And I've always been weary of any rhetoric surrounding Avatar leading up to this last, like, Monday or whatever, whenever this news dropped. I was like, hey, the box office record is one of the last things to bring up in a discussion about the merits of Avatar. And it's a volatile thing. And it won't be held forever. Avengers Endgame won't hold this record forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, no
Avatar
movie
wasn't
will
going to hold it forever.
Record forever.
Exactly. Inflation is going to keep doing its things.
Yep.
Eventually, a VA check and $12 won't get you a cup of coffee. That's a quote from the Extended Collector's Edition.
That's true.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I remember that now.
But the point the point is, like, it's not it's a very ephemeral thing to brag over, regardless of what film is currently holding number one.
Yeah, it's very, very true. I guess the takeaway from all of this is like what you like, damn it.
Yes,
because it doesn't matter at the end of the day. We're just arguing about fictional universes here. There's really no. There's not much to do about that.
Literally, we are all nerds.
Yeah.
We are all nerds. Some of us are nerds for both Avatar and Endgame, like me. Some of us aren't, and that's okay.
Yep.
Just, why are we arguing over the amount of money that they earned?
Yep. So, anyway, I've successfully contributed to making the least news thing take up roughly 20-some minutes and some change of this podcast.
Oh no, it's been that long.
Oh man.
Time flies when you're recording Eana Mokri.
Yeah.
This was supposed to be a light episode, right?
This is not uncommon for us.
It's a light episode. There's not much to do with the news. There's not much to say.
I think I'm pretty sure at this point, it's a light episode is a meme.
It's a light episode means that it's slightly below an hour.
Yeah.
Actually, our last light episode, I think, was 1 hour and 5 minutes, so not even that is true.
Yeah. We're bad. We're bad at keeping on topic sometimes.
Anyway, Pamela, can we get the segue canon ready?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of canon, we have a minor Navi language update. Ha! You kind of just passed that one to me.
It was not intentional.
Anyway, Willem, we'll go to you for this, since I've been talking entirely too much this episode.
Right, so there has been a canon update from Caio Paul on the Na'vi language, which I was really enthusiastic about. So let me explain what happened. So Chile, a member of our community, was writing a book and asked the question to Paul if it is allowed to put, so if you have a modal verb, to negate not the modal verb itself, but the dependent verb of the modal verb. So, for example, you could have the sentence "ketsun vom," I mean, I cannot eat. You could also make that into "tsun ke vom," which would be something like, "It's possible that I don't eat," which means something slightly different. Right, so then Caio Paul wrote a lengthy email back, confirming that this is indeed possible. And like basically not only with tsun, but with a whole lot of modal verbs. So in particular with the verb zene for have to must. We already had the form zenke, which is now like backwards canonized as coming from zeneke, which was already pretty clear, but okay. So basically you can now, if you have the modal verbs, you can now say modal verb, ke verb. Which I find really cool because it gives a whole, like a large number of new sentence patterns that you can make.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the most clear examples of this is using neo versus so porque neo quive does not want they do not want to go versus por neo que quive he or she wants to not go.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wants not to. Wants
not to go. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, the example for var is very clear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's either he doesn't continue eating or he continues to not be eating.
Yeah. I think this is a great clarification. It makes sense that it is like this, especially given he, as KP brought up, was Zenke. Celia actually mentioned that in the original email, was requesting whether there's tsunke or neoke and other such examples. But yeah, the etymology of Zenke does suggest that this pattern did in fact exist, and it's nice to have it codified like this. It's also just kind of cool that like even 10 years later, basically, that we're still finding these sort of simple grammatical functions that haven't necessarily been codified.
Yeah, especially because this question was really never asked. So in fact, I think most of us actually thought about it at some point and were like, no, it's not allowed, because at least we haven't seen an example of it, so it's probably not allowed, so never mind.
Yeah.
And I think only Chile actually had the idea to actually ask it.
Yeah.
But for example, there's some other corner cases, like what if you do not actually put the ke immediately behind the modal verb? So if you would want to say something like neo kekem ke sivi, I want to do nothing. So I guess that's now also allowed because it follows the same pattern. Which is interesting because if you, like before we only knew that zenke came from zeneke, which means that then ke might have been only allowed immediately after the modal verb. But so now we know this, I'm assuming that it can go, like it can be separated with other words.
Right.
So I like this a lot. So it just gives a whole like new possibilities of expression, which I didn't even know were necessary, but now that we have them, they are really nice.
Absolutely. This is something that it tangentially relates to something that kind of annoys me about some grammar discussions that can happen sometimes. Is a lot of people are very hesitant to believe that something could be simply on the basis of we don't have any canon examples to say that this is something that you can do, even if it logically makes sense that you could.
Guilty.
And will sometimes dismiss ideas because, we have no canon examples, therefore we can't say it is the case.
I think we could call this the Nume disease. I have the feeling that since Nume got declared as intransitive, everyone is now super afraid, and also kind of rightly so, to make any deduction about grammar rules that seems quote-unquote logical.
That's a fair point.
But that doesn't. So I always try when I'm writing leNa'vi to still do little bit of this. Like if I think something feels right to me, then I will just write it, and then it might be that there is no particular example of that specific instance of grammar rule that I would be using, but I'm still pretty sure it would at least be understood by leNa'vi, and I think it makes sense. So then I just try to use it.
Yeah.
And I think that
process,
makes,
basically.
I think this makes more sense than trying to find examples of literally everything, because also if you look at how this went, so Chile asked the question, wait, is this possible? And Paul actually said, I looked at it. Firstly, I was like, yeah, maybe not, because it feels weird. But then afterwards, he had like, yeah, but actually it makes sense, so let's allow it. Mm-hmm. So it's not like Paul,
and I guess there's something else to pick up from this, is that really it never hurts to just ask. Like,
yeah,
it may be that it's the situation that that you never hear back, but like it, from what I've understood and from what I've seen firsthand, Paul is a pretty awesome person. So
I think you can use the pretty in that sentence.
Like,
or replace it by very.
Yeah, and just completely. How's that? A no-wote. But it seems to me like he's the kind of person who, if he doesn't respond to an email that you send him, it's because he legitimately just forgot.
Mm-hmm.
He was just busy. I mean, he's busy right now.
Yeah. No
He's
one's
an
doubting the
academic.
busyness of Paul Fo.
I mean, academics'
Yeah,
email replying habits are generally bad because of extreme busyness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he's an academic in
Also
the movie
very
industry,
guilty.
so that's even more busyness. So, I mean, hey, what can you do?
There's a certain point at which you are well known enough that enough people message you that on top of everything else you're doing, you realistically cannot reply to everybody.
Yeah.
Which is very unfortunate because I have a feeling that he would really rather be able to.
Yeah. But he is very well connected with the community, and he does really genuinely appreciate the efforts of the community, and we have a very good sort of symbiotic relationship with Paul, and I think that's we've talked about this before, but that's just something that's extra excellent about the Avatar community, is really this sense of connectedness that we have, not only to each other but also to the creators of the thing that we gather around. Speaking of connections, we have some science news.
Nice.
Ooh.
Well done.
See, I am an expert at this.
The segue.
Well played. I need to come up with like an intro music bit for this, but anyway.
Just play
That's very
Mozart
cheesy.
for Elise.
I need to start doing it like the weekend updates where it's just like the headline but with a joke. Anyways, there's a couple of interesting things. One of the more Avatar related interesting things that came out very, very recently was that there was a group of scientists that were out on a walk and happened to notice that a particular tree stump was still alive. Their theory was, and some research that they published suggested, that the trees surrounding this stump were keeping it alive through the interconnected root system. Now, the reason why this is interesting is because most people, if you ask them about trees in general, they would say that each tree is an individual thing. This suggests that they're not. This suggests that we've been thinking about forests wrong and should be thinking of them more as a super organism, something made up of many, many different parts. Now, where have we heard of superorganisms like that before?
So are you saying that we have potentially our very own Pandoran forests?
To some extent, there is that there's. We've already talked about, at one point, we know that trees will share resources. They have some way to communicate with each other that we don't fully understand yet, to where if there's a shortage of resources in a certain particular part, they will share resources across each other to try to keep everybody alive through this root system. So we kind of knew about this to some extent. What's really fascinating is the fact that this is keeping a stump alive, where we would usually think of a stump as a tree that has died and fallen over, and there's just what's left.
Right.
Now, at first glance, you might look at this and say, well, what's the point? Why is it useful to keep this thing alive? Doesn't it seem like a drain on resources? To some extent, yeah, but on the other hand, this tree stump has its own root system, and by keeping it alive, you're keeping that root system alive and giving yourself more area to be able to extract resources from.
Exactly. You're maintaining the connection.
And covering more ground with it.
Exactly. It's I guess if you were to make an analogy where, like, you have three cities, A, B, and C, and they're connected by train, and the easiest way to get from city A to city C is to go through means of city B. if city B has a disaster, it's in A and C's best interest to help B to maintain the connection that brings them together.
Yeah. Exactly. It's pretty interesting.
Now, I know that they've. I'm gonna find the words somehow.
I believe in you.
I know there's a kind of tree that is sort of like this, where it's like the tree itself is actually it is clearly classified as one. I think it's like a clonal colony or something.
Yeah, there's some fungi that are like that too, where it's literally just a massive interconnection of genetically identical fungi in one area.
The aspen tree.
Aspen trees, yeah, because there's that Pando Aspen Grove in Utah, which is all one tree.
Yep, exactly. That's the first thing I thought of, but obviously, clonal colonies are like a known quantity, so this is clearly something else.
In fact, that's specifically not the clonal colony piece, but that's mentioned in here that the thing that's interesting about this is not necessarily that we get this root system that's interconnected. It's that it's keeping this stump alive, which that's what's interesting. There's a piece of it that would should be by all means of what we've always considered to be how trees work. It should be dead, but it's alive, and that's where we were the most curious.
Yeah.
But yeah, in this case, it's actually it's trees of the same species, but they're not genetically identical. They can actually kind of tell if they're genetically similar enough to be able to exchange resources, and that's when they're called root grafts. When they meld together like that, that's when these start to form.
I mean, that makes sense. That means species will often band together, and why should plants be any different?
Yeah. It makes sense.
I mean, from a telescoped like alien view, all humans are individual creatures that need to take care of themselves and whatever, but we are also capable of, even though we are completely separate organisms, sharing resources, working together.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of telescopes in space,
yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah, it was a good segue setup. I appreciate it. The other major thing that has happened within the past couple of weeks is India just launched a mission to the moon. It is not a manned mission, unfortunately, but it is another mission to the moon, which, I mean, to some extent, is not the most exciting thing. To some people, but the reason it's exciting is because NASA's also working on this. The ESA is working on getting things to the moon. That's kind of the big deal about it, is that we're starting to go back to the moon again. And the reason we want to do that is because that's the easiest way to get to Mars, is to go from the moon there.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool, just because, I mean, not only is it going to help set up more exploration in other areas, but it's just really cool anytime a country does something for the first time.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think that's just an across the board thing. Anytime a country does something positive or explorative like this, it's something to be, applauded, because it shows that more of the world is starting to grow as a group.
I feel like there's something universally appreciable about any sort of endeavors to go to space. It's almost like appreciation for space science and exploration is almost an atrophied muscle after the space race, because it's like we were rushing to make our way to the stars, and then as soon as we got there, we forgot to be excited about it somehow. But like, objectively, it's got to be fascinating. Just it's fascinating on a fundamental level. And also just the idea that, like, you know, they're putting the stuff on the moon that will sort of serve as a leapfrogging point to get to Mars. It's the same reason that people put, like, telescopes and stuff in space. It's because there's a lot of stuff getting between us and space in the form of our atmosphere. Like, it's so much easier to see space from space than it is to see from, you know, the ground. And just the amount of clarity that, like, people will go to, like, extremely isolated parts of the world or on top of mountains just to get a more clear view. You can't get a more clear view than literally being in space.
Yeah.
It's actually possible to build a space telescope with a clear view on the moon, because the moon doesn't have an atmosphere, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at least the atmosphere is minimal, so that's a big benefit too. And the moon is also phase locked, which means that we can build it on one side of the moon, and we will never have the Earth in the way.
That is okay. Could you? I hate to interrupt the segment, but could you please explain tidal locking? Like, this is something that, like, makes no sense to me. Like, this is one of those things where it's like, this is almost too much of a coincidence. Like, how?
I can explain that. So here's how tidal locking works. You have something that's rotating, right?
Yes.
But strictly speaking, from a gravitational perspective, both, let's say you're looking at it, both the left and the right sides would have the same amount of gravity pulling on them, right?
Yes.
So what's happening?
I follow so far.
What's happening here is it's slowing down the rotation because it's pulling on the side. What's the best way to put that? So it's rotating.
Pulling on both sides equally.
Yeah, it's pulling on both sides equally. And what ends up happening is it's slowing it down that way.
Right. So any spin in one direction would be sort of slowed, counteracted by the gravitational pull on, like, the other part.
Yeah, exactly. So
okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's the easiest way to explain that. But yeah, exactly. And that just happened with the moon. It happens all the time. I mean, even the Earth itself is slowly slowing down with its rotation around the sun and its current rotation to where the days are slowly getting longer and longer.
Right.
But you can't really tell. It's literally like milliseconds a year. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But it happens.
Oh, if you're in computer timekeeping, you can tell, because sometimes you get those weird leap seconds, which are pretty annoying, I guess.
Yeah, they've started doing leap seconds to try to help keep that together.
Yeah. So I sort of a next step question, though. So what caused the moon to be tidally locked that, like, some of the planets aren't? Like, what? I guess, is it just a scale issue?
Yeah, it's mostly a scale issue.
Okay.
The moon used to be closer to Earth than it is now.
And spinning, I assume?
At one point, yeah, it was spinning. And so just the fact that the moon is so much smaller ended up eventually slowing it down to the point that it is now. And it should stay tidally locked like it is.
Right. If the moon starts spinning, we have other problems.
Yes.
Okay.
If the moon stops spinning, somebody put a rocket on there. A really big one. But that actually leads to a little interesting tidbit. We live in a really lucky time in that the moon is just the right distance from Earth to where solar eclipses are possible.
Right,
in
right.
a few centuries, even, that may not be the case.
Yikes.
It's pretty awesome. But I did want to
the moon's drifting away from us, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did want to make a quick mention as to why I thought that this Indian launch to the moon was interesting. For one, the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11 was literally a week or two ago.
Yeah.
Which is a huge deal. What India is actually carrying to the moon is a small laser reflector. Now, when the Apollo missions launched, they brought reflectors with them to the moon. Every Apollo mission has done this. And what they did was they set those up on the moon. The idea is we can shine a laser at that and measure how long it takes for it to go from Earth to there and back, so we can get a measurement of how far away the moon is.
Mm-hmm.
They're essentially doing exactly that, but with a satellite in orbit instead, to get a distance from the moon to the satellite. Why is this important? Because it turns out there's two major theories of gravity. There's Newton's gravity, which is pretty much what you would learn in any physics class. And then there's Einstein's gravity, which thankfully they don't teach in many physics classes because it's ridiculously difficult to understand. But both of these theories actually give a different prediction for how far away the moon is right now.
Interesting.
And it's a very slight difference. It's literally like tens of meters. But lasers are accurate enough that we can get that difference, and it's a test of relativity to see if it's right.
Right. Okay. So, if you...
Surprise,
I was half expecting you to complete that idea with the idea that, like, the difference is, like, literally 2.5 centimeters. And it's like, are you kidding me?
No,
like, that's like a clerical error away from... Okay, 10 meters. Okay.
Yeah, it's like tens of meters. I mean, it's still a really, really small distance because we're talking something that's a 250,000 miles away.
Yeah, and of course, like, you're now measuring the distance to an arbitrary point on the surface instead of the center of mass, I would presume. So then, I have no idea how you would correct for this.
Yeah, they correct for all of the effects. So they correct for the effect of the atmosphere. They correct for the effect of actually beam divergence, because laser beams will get wider as they go farther. They correct all of this. It comes back and you can get a measurement of that distance, and it turns out, tends to fit with Einstein, which is good, because if it didn't, we would have to do a lot of physics again.
So much physics.
Which puts you into a job, so that would be good, right?
Mm-hmm. That's one of the biggest things. Now, again, why is this important? NASA's bringing more to the moon. They're bringing improved ones. They're bringing better ones, because the ones up there are 50 years old now.
Yeah.
They're still really, really accurate, but they're 50 years old. We can get much better accuracy from here.
Oh, yeah.
So we want to put more up there. It'll be really interesting, I think. It's an exciting time for space exploration. We're going to get some really cool stuff happening in the next couple of decades.
Yeah, I'm sufficiently pumped.
And
it doesn't come across in my voice, but no, it is actually exciting.
I would like to talk a little bit, just a quick thing. One of the things that comes up a lot with this stuff, especially if there's people who aren't so interested in space exploration. Like, I mean, I'm interested in it because it's cool, and I like Star Trek and things like that, so I love it.
And all the people who don't like it aren't cool,
right? No, I think it's I think it's awesome, right. But there's an argument there to be said, like, well, why are we doing this? Why are we putting so much money into this? The reason for that is a lot of technology comes out of it that you may not expect. Like, I can almost guarantee you we would not have cell phones if it wasn't for Apollo 11. It's a lot of tech and a lot of this research ends up coming into the general public just from people taking these ideas and applying them in different ways.
That's the thing, is the space program has had to solve a whole lot of problems that we almost didn't know that we had to solve.
Yeah.
Just in the process of doing whatever their mission was. And there's a lot of technology that is required to be developed for these things that can affect, your average Joe. I mean, heck, there's so much of our technology that we have now was developed as a result of like wartime efforts too.
Yeah.
It's like there's a spillover effect for any sort of new technology or any impetus to develop and innovate. And I think it's always objectively a good thing to be broadening our horizons and reaching for new boundaries, because we're going to find stuff there in our quest. Like it's always the friends you make along the way, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I bring it up because the current rhetoric is always like, well, we're blowing the hell out of our own planet. Why don't we just go find another one? I'm like, that's not really why we're doing space exploration. We don't want to go colonize Mars because we want to have a backup plan for Earth.
Yeah, we already have an ideal planet for living on, and it's called Earth.
Like, we want to go colonize Mars because Mars gives us a lot of cool information about the rest of our solar system, as well as other solar systems, and we can learn a lot about just what happens on Mars. What is it? Why is it the way it is? What makes it up? What is all of this? There's a lot of stuff we don't know about Mars.
Yeah. And in learning the story of Mars, we can learn the story of other planets. Right now, we've only read one book, and it's the one of Earth, and even then we've skimmed through it at best.
Yeah, I mean, we have theories on stellar formation, on planet formation, and all of this, but a lot of those are based off of just us looking through telescopes at really far away stars and our own solar system. Mm-hmm. When we first found planets around other solar systems, we found Neptune-sized planets really close to stars, and we previously didn't think that was possible because that's not what we have here.
Right.
I mean, we have one piece of a massive sample. So, yeah, exactly. Doing that helps us with that. Plus, we can put telescopes on Mars, too.
Colonizing Mars not only allows us to have all that, but it gives us some interesting new resources, because we don't necessarily have the same concentrations of different resources on Earth as there is on Mars. And it would also make space exploration a lot less time consuming if we could launch from Mars.
Exactly.
That is
just
true.
having that sort of rest stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same reason we want to launch to Mars from the moon, because it's much less resource intensive.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So if we could colonize Mars to the point where someday we could even make our rockets and such there and launch them from there, because we have enough people there to launch from, that would cut down on a lot of cost.
Absolutely. And time.
Yeah.
Speaking of time, we're at an hour 13, so let's get to the leNa'vi discussion and close out this episode.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Because this is supposed to be a light episode.
Yep.
Oh, it is. This is a light episode.
This is an Eana Mokri light episode.
Light episode is relative. There's a podcast I listen to. They put out one episode a week. It's 5 minutes long, and I'm like,
how?
Dang. How? Anyway,
here we're overproductive.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, productive. We'll call it productive. Anyway, so the word of the cast, as always, we have a featured word of the cast to sort of prompt discussion. The word of the cast this week is ftem. It is a transitive verb to mean pass by, as in Endgame Untitled ftem. Ayrawng eri. Ha pivենք oko.
Srade.
Get trant en kau eat.
Tsaf mauneri tuteo siolau weru fte pamrel sivi article unu terantok teri. Se Endgame teri.
Kesolani no. Tuteo shaungaru sra.
Srane neo tuteo nameo tuteo pivenk o wehu tsaf maun teri.
Fmauni lauk tute sra.
Srane. Wedi sko soha you unateran tok Isef bil we le boru.
Wow. Ansan.
Srane.
Olein san sran. Sik. Srak.
Srane. Palink o wehu we pohu.
Oetsun ivinan srak.
Kaum. Kenne oe tänkte Geo Mumwell tänkte Körpe sa article di tsunfko ivinan.
Neo ivinan savurid.
Strane. Polil wel futa sun wivent u wel I seeng di wea lì'fya olo hu. Sla piyewe.
Dan.
Tiloho ke neo oe skiva.
Rut vi fint o.
Srane. Sakam sisiewe. Salsungai pult ewe anker fitter taf mounteri lì'fya o steng. Strane. SF pului fitterra to boom kinterram stenget an leu.
Ningai srak.
Ja, strane. Kello latem.
Tsalu fetni italuna set vot kifkeje FPL futa ai dan sohaju unotrantok lu hackni it. Kehe.
Strane.
Hangvoeren au. Nifketungai newot multe ngahu.
Keft o lufwa I saw you o Endgame tsunnivu raptum. Snonra at slang lunganu lufboru kolan oe luforu.
Ma enga sake nolin sa realita rusik alu Avengers.
Srane.
Kenolin wel kea realita rusik tsasna ome.
Tam weri niten kehe. fureri kerstmånwerwoningai. Mat awe root waiting.
Bywa futa darela rusik lut ansan sla koplu gefto nga.
Srane hamarel arsik nideng kefja.
Nit an.
Sran. Frasel mum lueru sarel dari lufwa lutikeft o.
Lukefto nga taluna tuteo terkup salahe fu taluna tsarala rusik lufe.
Taluna aya sute ap ai. Telkup nit an.
Mal sute tolerku kefja.
Srana.
Srane sale u alu maul lesar leu miftele.
Dam. Keolomuel spoiler futa sa snaral arusik lu se stunwi salahe.
Srana maula u a re telku. Tolerku.
Dam. Kesmon wer no. Tup ni.
Ke wel kau i satari kup ne id.
Kolanoe li'ualahe ki. Kesmon wer no ki ni.
Set lu yayaer. Mele ualu ki se tu. Tikateng lu peu.
Ticketing lu fwa alvea li'u gang slang lu do hufwa kolanwe nyan li'uri alu tup li'u gang amuve slang lu.
Dam. Set fe tikatengeri kesmon nino sla resion wel sat.
Tifnuil weti speak au så för podcast ur hasesi vi luangaru elea neo bifot fu livau
Omuvel. Folinka veru tele. Tsun livau tsafmaunit a teri ralarusik alu Avengers. Alu kehe.
Anker polenk o oe oeng.
Ketsuleri wel.
Ninga Israel.
Kehe. Hasei siviko.
Srana. Hasei siviko.
O ke livu mengaru ele an neo livau. Zakar tsunoe hasei sivi.
Zakemsiko.
Galueru daluna o efu ngain nehang.
Hasei sivi a fe uri o alu alaxi.
Srane sla se mengaru ana aileu.
Peu?
Lueru tike kolano set perut menga ha solit o oeng vivar kefiat
Strane o bivil nga futa fit ele el turtit ensi.
Strane
Ute tsakr kemultewe ngaru.
Luipu te ipu weru kara pivot mengahu kara efungen.
Oetsun efungen oetsun if efungen taluna fit sengeri lu amton sle bengari
Amter mal kefiak Amton mal kefiak
Stran ketsuleri wa strane lu haunkr
Sran sla okay hasesi vioe fit podcast tour takar zene menga aun fit sing
o nga tsakem kasi tsakroet sun tsakem sivi.
Srane ketsun menga hivum srefwa tung well sat
Mat awe hunko
Sakemra SC hip well mengat hip mengat
ha se podcasti
Srane ansana pum.
lekker.
With that, I will be a merciful host.
Yes.
And allow the podcast to end. Mostly because it's just running and I have to edit it later. So I'm as cruel as I want to be to make Awe and Willem remain, though they are tired, I will also have to continue editing it. So for my own selfish reasons, the podcast will come to an end. This episode, anyway. The podcast itself is not ending. Tune in to future episodes where we will be continuing to cover news, such as we did here, as well as interviewing members of the community. If you are interested in participating in a member interview, there is a link to a survey. Should be in all of the platforms that you listen to this podcast on. sign up, answer a couple of questions, and if you have the right stuff, a microphone and Audacity, you can join us in a discussion like this.
And not only can you join the discussion, but you can also see, like, get an interesting behind-the-scenes view of our podcast, and you can see how incredibly organized you always are.
Oh yeah, we're so
Very
organized.
true.
Yeah, I mean, you get to see this well-oiled machine that we maintain and repeatedly drive into the mud every single week.
We have spreadsheets that we then don't update. We have more spreadsheets. We have Google Docs, which we also don't really update. So,
Yeah.
very organized.
Yeah, we're super organized.
100%.
Completely. With that, Ayrawng.
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 Yeah, I don't have a graceful way of just ending this episode. Just Ayrawng. Nice light episode, everybody.
Yeah, it's a bit long though. I don't know how that happened.
You don't know how this happened. How many episodes have you been on?